and speaker. The topic is the new role of HR in collaboration with Jacob Morgan. He is with Chess Media Group. He is also the author of the best-selling book, The Collaborative Organization. So without further ado, we're going to get him on the show. So Jacob, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fantastic. Not too bad here in the United States. So for those of you that are paying attention or listening in, Jacob is actually not in our country. He's in Amsterdam. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I flew in the day before yesterday and I'm flying back out tomorrow.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I know for people that know you, you are a traveler, so it's hard to keep up with you, but hopefully you're not broadcasting today from a coffee shop or the red light district, right?
No, no. It would be interesting if I did it from the red light district, I'll tell you. It might have
Yeah.
been a more entertaining webinar for everybody.
Yeah, we might have a lot of people breaking the servers down. But anyway, Jacob, we're glad you're safe, and thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're quite the authority on collaboration within organizations. And, Jacob, it does seem that enterprise today has been slow to integrate collaboration into their organizations, and especially HR. And we know employees are really the most valuable asset. So we're going to let you now take over the presentation for about 15 minutes to kind of explain this, and how this new role of HR and collaboration can come together. So Jacob, go ahead and we'll give you the screen and controls and take it away. We look forward to it.
Sounds good. Okay, so let me know if can you see my screen okay?
There we go. Looks good.
Okay, great. So yes, I'm going to be talking about the new role of HR specifically in the world of collaboration. Um, and it's actually kind of an interesting role that HR has, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So really quick, for those of you that want access to more information and case studies and whatnot around collaboration, here's a place for you to go, chessmediagroup.com/resources, get more info there. A little bit about me. So I do have a book called The Collaborative Organization, which came out not too long ago. I blog at socialbusinessadvisor.com. And for those of you that want to connect with me on Twitter to ask any other questions or keep the conversation going, I'm at Jacob M there.
Hey,
So a
Jacob.
couple sentences about the book. It's the first comprehensive strategy guide on digital and social collaboration in the workplace. So if you're interested in that topic, it's something that you're looking to pursue at work or just get educated about, the book could be a very valuable resource for you on that. So jumping right in is kind of this notion of why are we here? Why are we talking a lot about this stuff? And what's the point? Oh, sorry. See my little chat thing pop up there. And so really the reason why this is so crucial today is because we're dealing with the future workforce. And the future workforce, this is my little brother Josh here. He's just turning 21 this year. And the future workforce is interesting because they're always connected. They find and share information at will. They engage with communities. Now, in this particular picture, my brother Josh has been able to build himself a career as a videographer and filmographer for free using social tools in his personal life. I mean, you learn how to do this stuff on YouTube videos, through discussion forums, and through kind of online places where people learn and talk about film and photography. And as a result, he's been able to build this type of practice for himself, and he's able to buy these very, very expensive cameras for himself. And again, never went to film school, never did any type of formal training, but he educated himself and learned about all these things for free. Now imagine somebody like this entering your enterprise, where you get 150 emails a day, where employees don't have a voice to share their opinions and ideas, and when they're not connected. So you can see how there's a big disconnect between what's happening within enterprises right now and what the future of work is actually going to look like. And the big gap that we're seeing between the consumer web and the enterprise side is this, these new tools and behaviors that are emerging within the consumer web. It's easy for us to engage with people and share information and use these types of technologies. And in the enterprise, we're still very much stuck in a lot of legacy systems. We're stuck in email. We're not adapting as fast as we should be. And there's kind of this command and control mentality that's really, keeping a lot of organizations behind. and moving the consumer web far ahead of what we're seeing in the enterprise. So what are the common collaboration problems that we're seeing? I put this into two groups. The first is around kind of broader collaboration problems that we're seeing within organizations in general, such as difficulty finding and sharing information, content duplication issues, aligning your organization as a whole. And then we have specific problems related just to HR, and these deal with things such as work-life balance issues or employee engagement and onboarding and retention and employee experience. Just to give you some background, there was a recent study that was done, and in that study, McKinsey found that around 600 to 900 billion dollars, that's the value, the untapped revenue potential that comes from communication and collaboration between and across organizations. So, in other words, if we did a better job of leveraging these types of tools and strategies within our companies, organizations would be generating an extra between 600 and 900 billion dollars annually just in the United States. And there's also a 20 to 25% improvement in knowledge worker productivity, which is possible when these tools are properly deployed. So there's also this big gap we're seeing between what HR does versus what most people think HR does. Now, most people, when you think of HR, they think of people that just kind of, they sit in their cube, and whenever you get in trouble or when there's something to deal with money, you got to go talk to HR. So most people think HR really focuses on things like discipline, right? If it's time to get fired or it's time for my review, you got to go talk to HR. Most people also think that HR just focuses on on recruitment, on hiring, on staffing and payroll. But the reality is that HR should do, and in most cases, or in some cases, does do a lot more. I mean, HR is the department that has sort of the pulse of the enterprise at hand, right? They know what's happening in the organization. They're familiar with the vision and goals. They're really focused on employee retention and growth and the employee experience when they're working for that particular company. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between what most people think HR does versus what today's HR professionals should be doing, and again, in some cases, are actually doing. Now, all of this comes back to talent management, and this is kind of the role of HR within organizations is talent management. And talent management encompasses a couple different things here, ranging from onboarding to employee experience to recruiting and retention. I'm going to talk a little bit about these in more depth. So as far as collaborating onboarding goes, HR has the unique opportunity to leverage some of these social and collaborative tools to do some really interesting things. For example, putting together an employee scavenger hunt on this type of a social and collaborative platform, or perhaps letting new employees that are entering the workforce at the same time in a particular company to connect with each other and with new coworkers and start to build these types of relationships with each other. Training can be done in a collaborative environment where employees can share ideas and get access to insights and questions, and provide this type of a peer-based support group within the enterprise. And it also allows for information to be more accurate and more up-to-date during that process. Now, I won't read all the statistics, but here are just some interesting stats to support that. Two of them that I think are very, very interesting. The very last one is 32% of employees within a team don't know what their next move is within the company. So it's basically a third of people that work for your company, they don't know what their next move is. And the other one that I think is very, very interesting to look at is that only 42% of employees think senior management encourages development of talent. So less than half of employees within organizations think that senior management does a good job of encouraging talent. The next area for talent management is performance management. This is a huge issue within a lot of companies and goes back to the notion of, how do you manage your employees and how do you improve performance? And these collaborative environments give us a very unique opportunity to do that by providing real-time feedback to employees. You no longer need to wait for your yearly or bi-yearly review. You can now leverage these types of tools to quickly give feedback to your employees and coworkers. It's also very, very easy and effective for executives and managers to encourage and provide support and by engaging with other people. It's very easy to identify problem areas when they come up. And again, when we talk about performance management, we're really talking about, how can you get the desired behaviors that you're looking to get from your employees? What do you need to do for that? And again, the collaborative environment makes it very, very easy to, kind of break down these barriers and have an open and transparent environment where managers and employees and executives can communicate and share quickly and effectively and efficiently. And it really helps improve on traditional performance management, which is really not that effective in most companies today. Again, some statistics. There are a couple that I think are, again, very, very relevant here. The first one, 78% of U.S. workers said being recognized motivates them in their job. Now, you think of a traditional organization, it's very hard to publicly recognize and motivate an employee unless you have some type of a collaborative environment. And when I say collaborative environment, yeah, I suppose the best analogy is something that looks and feels and does some of the things that Facebook does, but goes far beyond that and extends into a lot of areas. But for simplicity's sake, think of if you had like a Twitter or Facebook for your company, and if you get rewarded and recognized, people can publicly see it, and it's just this type of an open environment where people can can see and feel good about the conversations they're having. Another very interesting statistic, and actually a little bit of a scary statistic, 46% of new hires leave their job within the first year. That's almost half, and it's a really, really scary statistic. And again, that goes back to this notion of the necessity to improve performance management in organizations. Next one is rewards and incentives. These collaborative environments make it very easy to translate a lot of traditional rewards and incentives programs into this type of an online environment where we can use leaderboards and badges and status updates, and it provides a very unique opportunity for employees and managers to talk, right? Ask about benefits, get feedback on new policies that your organization is looking to develop. So it's a great way to kind of bring what you're doing in the traditional environment into that online environment. And if you're not doing anything in the traditional environment, this is a great place to start. Learning and growth is a huge, huge area. Again, if you had something like Facebook for the enterprise where employees were talking to each other and communicating, you'd be able to identify some of the employee passions and maybe help move them into a job at your company that helps cultivate that passions. And employees have the opportunity to not only become teachers but also students, right? So they can learn and they can retain information, but they can also share information. They can create videos about things that they're interested in, and they can help educate others. So the path here within organizations for a lot of employees is no longer determined, it's chosen. It's chosen during the employee's tenure within your organization. And a key tenet of this is all around discoverability, finding people, finding information that you wouldn't normally have access to. Retention is another key area for performance management. And, when you look at retention, it's basically how do employees or how do organizations get employees to stay there? So why would you want to work and stay at a particular company? Well, if an organization is deploying a lot of these social and collaborative tools and strategies and integrating it into the culture, it's kind of a cool company to work for. And people want to work for a modern, cool company. It also allows employees to kind of, pivot in other areas. So in other words, if you get hired in a marketing role and you find you're no longer interested in just marketing, you have the opportunity to stay within that company but look for a type of role. And work usually, it has that continuous feeling new. And you have that feeling of community. You have a greater sense of fulfillment for what it is that you're doing. One of the key areas that I think a lot of organizations don't talk about enough is the notion that collaboration makes the world a better place. And in the United States alone, we spend over $400 billion just on stress-related issues. And one of the leading causes of stress is work. So now imagine if you make it easier for employees to get work done. They're more passionate about the work that they're doing, more connected to the work that they're doing at work. They're allowed to work from more flexible environments. I think a lot of this will positively impact the lives of employees outside of work. It'll reduce the stress in their lives. It'll give employees more personal time to spend with their friends and their loved ones. I think they'll have less arguments with their spouse when they come home, and they'll just be happier people in general. So what does HR need to do after all this? There are a couple things. HR really needs to understand what the tools are out there, what they are, how they work, and how they can impact their organization. And next, understanding the application, right? Use cases. What are the use cases? How can they be integrated into various roles within the organization? And then HR really needs to focus on understanding and developing the vision for what collaboration needs to look like at the company. This means the short-term and the long-term goals, and it also means looking at what the team needs to look like that's going to help drive this within the organization. So the concept and what we're trying to do at the end of the day is to move from this type of a disconnected, disjointed environment to this type of a more connected and a more engaged environment. And again, I think that HR has a very, very unique opportunity since its role is focused on people. I think HR has a very, very unique opportunity to be kind of the driving force for collaboration within organizations. So now I guess we can open it up to questions if anybody has any. Again, if anybody has any questions they want to ask on Twitter afterwards, I'm happy to answer those questions. But yeah, let's open it up and chat with folks.
Well, Jacob, thanks. First of all, thanks so much. Excellent presentation. And before we get to some of the questions, I think Kevin's going to be moderating that. We want to put up a poll that I think you provided some good questions just real quick. So if Lauren, you could kind of post that poll up. And if you guys could, that are listening in, go ahead and please make a quick selection. We're going to leave this up for about 10 seconds. And then we're going to get back to the questions. So who's leading collaboration efforts at your company? Okay. Okay. All right. So let's remove this poll real quick, Lauren, and then Kevin, I'm going to let you take it away with some questions to our guest today, Jacob.
All right. It looks like a lot of the collaboration efforts are coming from IT and communications. So this is an interesting question, Jacob. When we see a lot of these social technologies and collaboration tools really being controlled by communications and marketing or IT, how does HR get a bigger stake in the selection of the appropriate tools to be used for collaboration?
So how does HR get more of a say?
Yes.
Well, I mean, HR needs to make a point to be a part of the conversation. You know, since HR is uniquely positioned, since its role is so focused on people, I think one of the things that HR needs to do is to help guide this. So they can either start these initiatives within their company, or if they find out about these initiatives that are already taking place, they need to go in there and say, we want a seat at the table. And then HR needs to bring to the table their specific use cases, and they need to come at this looking at what's the benefit to the employees. And you know, again, HR has a better perspective and understanding of, or should have a better understanding of, you know, the employee experience and what the employees want more so than everybody else. So I would hope that if these types of initiatives are happening, that whoever's running them is already coming to HR and saying, we want you involved. But if not, and HR, you know, catches wind of these things, HR needs to be very aggressive in saying that we want to be a part of this conversation, and we have some, you know, we have some things that we want to say as well.
Great, thanks. Here's another question. There's been a lot of talk about working from home, especially with what's going on with Yahoo and Best Buy. How do you see collaboration tools impacting this issue?
I'm all for working from home. I think it needs to be done in the right way. If a large organization doesn't have this kind of foundation in place and doesn't do enough to help convey, you know, what and why the organization is doing it, then you kind of have what I think Yahoo had, and they just had a little bit of you know, a little mishmash of things and a little bit of chaos. And I think what Yahoo's doing is they're kind of getting everybody to regroup, come together, and really talk about, you know, the culture of Yahoo, what it is that the expectations are for people that work remotely, how people can stay in touch, and really build that foundation for having a collaborative organization. And then I think they will go ahead and they will allow the kind of the work from home stuff to take place again later. Um, I think if the organization has that type of culture, if they're looking to become, a collaborative organization, I'm all for working from home. I haven't seen any specific case studies or research that say that working from home is bad or less productive or hurts the company. Yeah, I've seen actually just the opposite, where working from home helps foster creativity and innovation, and people are happier because they get to do it, and they still come into work sometimes to meet with their coworkers, and they still use video and web conferencing. So I think it's great. I think it adds value to the organization because most people want to work for an organization that lets them work from home at least sometimes. So I'm all for it. I think the organizations that are mandating everybody come to work, forever, I think that's a very old way of thinking. But if it's a temporary thing like what I think Yahoo's doing, where you just kind of need to regroup, get everybody back on the same page, then it needs to be done. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Great, thanks. And I've got one last question, and that is, do you see there being a gap between some of the younger employees and the more tenured employees in the adoption of collaboration tools within the workplace, and is that causing a problem for HR professionals?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of organizations that we work with and speak to say that the younger generation is much more quickly to adapt, or I should say adopt, than the older generation. But I can't say that that is like a rule. I don't know that's consistent across every organization. So it's hard to say. In organizations where that does happen, I think that companies do a good job of reverse mentoring. So they would put somebody younger that maybe is more familiar with these tools and strategies with somebody that is older that isn't familiar, and kind of do some reverse mentoring programs. Um, but I think there's a little gap in some companies, but I wouldn't generalize that and say that within all companies the younger generation is better and more familiar with the tools and adopts quicker than the older generation. I'd be very, very careful of saying anything like that.
All right, that's the last question that we had. Thanks,
Wow.
Jacob, very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Jacob,
Sure.
thank you for the insights. I think we all agree that you definitely have a good mind on this matter. We've been following you for quite a while. I know since we met in California, so it's been great to see the transformation of Chess Media and what you're doing there. So we really do appreciate it, Jacob, especially from Amsterdam. I know you're about what, 5 hours ahead there?
8.
Oh my goodness, 8 hours. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey,
Yep.
you have safe travels back, and for all of you that are still in the chat room, I think Lauren posted a link to his book, the collaborative organization there on Amazon. So highly recommend you taking a look at that. So Jacob, thanks again, and you have safe travels back home. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, thanks so much for listening in. Now, we just want to remind everybody for next month, our next webinar on Thursday, April the 11th, 2013, we'll be discussing legal issues in social media. The topic will be Don't Let Legal Keep You Out of Social with our special guest, Glenn Gilmore. So, again, thank you for joining us today. This is Ty Downing with SayItSocial Live, and we will see you guys next month. Thanks again.